Hello, everybody. And it is the morning of November 7th, 2025, and wanted to do a quick shutdown update video because last night a lot of interesting stuff came out. I feel like I keep saying that over and over again, but it keeps happening. First, I want to start by saying welcome to all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for being here. And if you like the video, hope you will click the like and subscribe button. And please leave comments. I do really enjoy them. I've replied to a bunch of them lately, and I'm enjoying reading them. Okay, on to the news. The first news has to do with the food stamp program. Yesterday afternoon, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to immediately pay out full food stamps, full SNAP benefits for the month of November. Now, this isn't, and by the way, the judge also stated that the Trump administration was failing to abide by prior court orders, which had required payment of SNAP benefits for this month. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, when the first of these rulings came out, the Trump administration said, absolutely, we need some guidance from the court. We need to figure some things out. But yes, we're going to follow this. And then it went to Trump saying, he would be honored to pay out the SNAP benefits. And then all of a sudden he said, we are absolutely not going to pay out the SNAP benefits. So he's been all over the board in terms of his position on this. Another thing I would throw out there as a question is, does the court have this authority? Judges do not have unlimited authority. Their authority is rooted in law. There has to be a law somewhere that says, okay, you judge have the authority to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not sure if the court has that or not. The third thing I would point out is that in the SNAP contingency fund, there is only about enough money to pay at most 2/3 of the benefits. Now, 2/3 is a hell of a lot better than zero. So I don't want to act like that's, might as well be nothing. 2/3 is a lot better than zero. However, I point out no one has gotten any SNAP benefits now for 7 days. So even if the Trump administration were to distribute all the contingency funds to the state, the program is actually usually administered by the states and paid. The federal government provides the funding. If they were to distribute all the funds, what are the states going to do? How are they going to handle it? Man, I don't know. So there is a court order as of last night stating that the Trump administration must immediately, in fact, the order I believe specified today, pay out full SNAP benefits. I do not believe the Trump administration has the capacity, even with the utmost in good faith, to comply with the order. I think the most they could do is distribute about 2/3 of that amount of money. Again, a lot better than zero, but that still leaves a lot of questions. So are SNAP benefits going to get paid? Heck if I know. There's at least a chance of it. I had thought based on the prior court orders, we would see some payment coming out around right now, maybe yesterday, today, tomorrow, that kind of range. I would assume if the Trump administration does try to provide these funds to the states, that would be sometime next week at the earliest. What's actually going to happen, I don't know. Okay, shutdown update. Late yesterday afternoon, there was a lot of news popping out. I was following Jake Sherman from Punchbowl News, who does some of the best in-depth congressional reporting. I was also checking sites on the Hill, which tends to do some pretty good reporting on what's going on in Congress. And there's a lot of chatter that a deal was brewing, and that there were several moderate Democrats who were coming together, and there was going to be a vote today, and that vote might actually work. And then a couple of announcements came out last night, starting with Senator Murphy from Democrat, I believe, from Connecticut. He came out and said, absolutely not. We're not going to do a deal. We're not going to take what the Republicans are offering. We're going to keep the government closed. We just won big on the elections on Tuesday. We're going to hold out. We're going to keep the government closed, and we're going to dig in and get more. Senator Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana, who is absolutely the funniest guy in the world, came out and said, I don't even know what we're voting on tomorrow. I think we have at least 7 to 10 more days, maybe two more weeks of this shutdown. I don't think we're going anywhere tomorrow. Kennedy has honestly been pretty reliable in the past when he said this is going to happen or this is not going to happen. His track record's been fairly good. Murphy, by the way, the Democrat senator, is also pretty reliable. He's fairly senior. Schumer basically said after the election, said, okay, now that the election is over, this was earlier in the week, now that the election is over, let's try to end this government shutdown. Basically the idea that they had gotten the electoral result, that the Democrats had gotten what they wanted by keeping the government shut down, by getting the election results, and that maybe now it was time to go ahead and get it open. So there appears to be a very big split in the Democrats. The Republican position doesn't appear to have changed very much. Republicans have been consistently voting to fund the government and reopen it. But we're now at the problem in that the clean CR, the continuing resolution, was only supposed to fund the government through November 21st. So even if you pass it now, we are 2 weeks away from it expiring, and we're right back where we started. Now, that being said, there'd be a lot of back pay. So a lot of people with missed paychecks and stuff would get it. So that would help. Final update has to do with air traffic control. You know, I've brought this up several times. The FAA released a map yesterday of 40 airports, and there are 40 really big airports that are all going to get around 10% cuts next week in air traffic. This includes airports in Los Angeles, in New York City, in Washington, D.C. It includes Atlanta, which is huge, and, Dallas. Many other major, Miami, Tampa. I live in Florida, so obviously I was paying attention to those. New Orleans, Las Vegas. I mean, it's all over the place. Basically speaking, I'm not sure if it's the exact 40 largest airports, but it's definitely 40 of the top 50. And my guess is it's probably a little tighter than that. Where I live in Jacksonville is actually not on the list, but it's really not going to help us too much because Orlando, Tampa, Miami, and Atlanta, who are in Charlotte, are 5 of the airports where we do a ton of our traffic with, are all getting the 10% hit. So we're going to get hit too. And the point of that comment is not so much woe is me. I'm not flying, so I don't have to worry about it next week. But if you are planning on flying next week and you're thinking, well, I'm not on that list of 40 airports, you might want to ask, how many flights per day is your airport doing with these other 40? Because if it's a good number, you're going to feel the impact, even if your airport isn't specifically designated, because there's going to be flight cancellations and delays going and coming. Are we going to see the end of the shutdown, this weekend or early next week? Maybe. I don't think so, based on what Kennedy said. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to rely on what Kennedy said, and I don't think we're going to get it. And I'm going to rely on what Murphy said, and that Murphy is trying to rally the Democrats to keep the government shut. I think, note I said think, he will be successful. As for SNAP benefits, man, I don't know. Trump has changed his position on this literally day to day, multiple times this week, and I seriously question whether or not they even can comply with the court's orders, even if they wanted to. By the way, this reminds me, if you remember when the city of Detroit was going through its bankruptcy like 15 years ago, one of the stupidest things I ever saw, by the way, most judges, 99% of judges, are extremely strict about saying, do I have authority in the law to do this? Can someone show me a statute, a case law, something that says this is an appropriate action for me to take? Every now and then you kind of get one of these wild hares who kind of goes and does their own thing. And there was a judge in Detroit the city was trying to do bankruptcy, said, I'm not going to allow the bankruptcy. And there was like some plan or some document. And she said, I'm going to send this to President Obama's desk and I'm going to make sure he reads that. And I remember I'd only been practicing law for a few years at that point, but I nearly fell out of my chair because I was like, what authority do you have to order the President of the United States to read anything? She certainly, as a citizen of the United States, had every right in the world to put it in an envelope and mail it to the White House with a letter saying, please read this. But the idea that she had the jurisdiction over the president to compel him to examine a document was just farcical. So the reason I bring that up in this context is a judge may think they have the power to do something, and it does not mean that they do. Again, 99% of judges, before they do anything, they're going to ask the question, do I have the authority to do this? Is this an appropriate use of judicial authority? I don't want to sound like I'm slamming judges here. The vast majority of them are incredibly careful about how they apply the law and how they use their powers. They do not want to exceed their power or their authority or misuse it in any way. But every now and then you kind of get one that just sort of goes off the rails, and I'm wondering if that's what we've got going on now. But either way, that's the update, and I hope everyone has a good day.